I've had it happen more than once when I've lowered the hammer on a percussion revolver. It locks the action to the point where the hammer can't move. This is not your typical cap jam. Usually it involves removing the barrel and cylinder, and I thought it'd be worthwhile to do a video about the situation. What I'll try to do here is discuss this in three parts. First part, we'll describe the situation. Second, we'll try to show what's happening inside the action when this goes on. And the third one will be to show how to possibly test the firearm for the condition. And we'll do this on several guns of different manufacturers, and we're making no claims that one is better than the other. Be sure anytime you handle a firearm to check to see it's not loaded. And to avoid the ugly drag marks on the cylinder, only rotate the cylinder using the hammer. If you do rotate the cylinder by hand, be sure the hammer's in the half-cock position that is used to load or unload the gun. So I'll try to explain the situation that we're talking about here. So I don't believe it happens very often. It has happened to me on a couple occasions, but I have never read or heard about it. And what it is you'll end up lowering the hammer onto a cylinder that has a cap on it, and then find out that you can't bring the hammer back because the cylinder is still locked up. And the reason you bring the hammer back, of course, maybe is to put it in the half-cock position like this, or the safety notch. You want to rotate the cylinder or something like that. So, but you're finding out that it's not able to do that because the cylinder is locked up. So let's take a look at what might be causing that. I've got a cylinder here that I put a number 10 percussion cap on that actually has nipples that need a number 11. So nipple is just a little too large for the cap that's on there, and therefore the cap doesn't fit quite as far ahead as it should. In fact, you can see here it's sticking out actually beyond that peg that normally would lock the hammer into a safe position between the two chambers. Okay, and if your gun happens to have a little extra play between the cylinder end, call it end play between the cylinder end of the cylinder and the barrel, it's possible that you can get this cap situation to occur, and there will be enough room for the cap to actually slide back around here between the frame and the cylinder, because the cylinder can slide ahead slightly. So this cap is then protruding out further than it should be, and the hammer is going to try to come up against this unfired cap here and not move far enough, as we're going to explain a little later on, so that the arm of the bolt can slide over the cam. Here's the hammer and the bolt on a jig. It shows the relationship between the cam and the arm of the bolt that rides up the bevel of the cam. As we see in the picture, the bolt arm is still on top of the cam. The hammer will need to move forward a slight amount so the arm can slide off the cam, drop down, then drawing back on the hammer will lower the bolt and allow the cylinder to rotate. And this is likely to be the position of things when the cylinder is locked up, because the hammer wasn't allowed to move far enough ahead, possibly because of an unfired cap or one that isn't seated far enough onto the nipple. Now there can be other reasons that the cylinder is locked or jammed after the hammer falls. So with that said, let's look at the way the cam and the bolt arm should function as the hammer is cycled. The arm needs to slide up the angle on the cam, and there is usually a bevel cut on the back side of the arm to help the arm get started. This bevel should only be enough so the arm does not hang up on the bottom of the cam. Too much in the part of the arm that slides down the cam becomes thin, almost like a knife edge, and is likely to cause a groove in the cam. On this hammer, the cam has had that happen. Probably the main thing noticed in the gun's function is that the bolt's going to drop on the cylinder a little ahead of schedule. This arm from a Pieta parts kit seems to me to have about the right amount of bevel. Tip retains its width, and that should cause a lot less wear on the side of the cam as it slides along it. Comparing this Pieta bolt arm to one from a second generation Colt, the arm is wider in the area where it must drop over the cam. This extra metal has strength and allows someone to fit it if necessary, but used as is, the hammer might need to be very near, if not at full travel, before the arm can slide off the cam. And if the hammer can't go further forward and the arm doesn't drop off, then the hammer will not be able to rotate the cylinder, and we have the situation we talked about earlier when the hammer is lowered and the gun becomes locked up. In this situation, the hammer can't move forward unless the bolt arm is thinner in its underside, where it's now on top of the cam. So the shooter will not be able to get the hammer to be drawn back into the safety notch or be able to pull the hammer back to fire the next shot. This not only causes an embarrassing situation, but potentially dangerous because the gun could fire if the hammer gets bumped or possibly during an attempt to free up the cylinder. Moving to the third topic, we'll look at some methods that might tell us if a gun has a situation, and because of the many variables involved, I can't overstress the word might. Well, here's our 4 guns we've got. These are replicas of a Colt 1851 Navy. Maybe the second one is not actually classified as a replica because it's a second generation Colt. But what we're going to try to do here is simulate the situation where this hammer isn't allowed to go all the way forward because there's maybe an unfired percussion cap in here. Maybe the percussion cap isn't on far enough, whatever, so that hammer wasn't able to go fully forward. And sometimes when that happens, the arm of the bolt then can't slide over the cam, doesn't got enough motion yet to do that, and that'll lock the gun up in this position here so that when we pull the hammer back, our cylinder will not move. Of course, in this case it does. So kind of simulate that so that the hammer doesn't go all the way forward. I'm going to put a Q-tip in between the cylinder here and the frame of the gun, and then pull the trigger, lower the hammer slow, and set that hammer on top of the Q-tip. So it wasn't able to go all the way forward. Now we'll see if we can rotate the cylinder by bringing your hammer back. That's as far as I can get it. So this thing is basically locked up. Now if I lower the hammer a little bit here, then it can go all the way forward. I'll hear a click. And that click then is going to allow us to be able to rotate the cylinder like it should. Alright, we'll try that same test with gun number 2 here. Bring her back to full cock. And we'll put our Q-tip here in the way of the hammer. I think I heard that click, so I'm willing to bet this one's going to work. Alright, no problems here. I'll try gun number 3. Hold that slow, and let's see if that one will rotate. Alright, no problems there. I'm going to go to our 4th one. Okay, and then let's bring her back to full cock. Q-tip in, lower the hammer slow. I'm not hearing a click, so I'm guessing this one's locked up. Right. Bring the hammer back that far, and then the hand right now is trying to spin that cylinder, and the bolt is still locked in, so that's not going anywhere. Alright, let's lower it and see if we hear a click. Right there. And now we'll be okay. Alright, so we had 2 of these 4 that worked just fine with a Q-tip in there, and a couple of them it didn't work so well. It doesn't mean these guns won't fire. It just means that there's a slight chance that when you lower the hammer on a unspent percussion cap, you may not be able to bring it back to fire our next shot or get it in the safety position as far as that's concerned. So if you don't have a Q-tip or a toothpick, there's another way you can kind of get some idea if you're going to have an issue with these guns, and that's going to be to take the barrel off, bring her to half cock, cylinder out, and kind of check to see where that hammer here is as far as the frame goes. Especially looking at this spot of the hammer that's flat down here, it's going to hit the percussion cap. I want to see where that is when I hear that click, or if I can hear a click. So I'm going to lower this one, bring it back to full cock, and lower this one slow and see where that is as far as the frame goes. Well, there's even with the frame. I haven't heard the click yet. Alright, that moves in maybe a little over 1/16 of an inch, and then that click is heard. So there may be enough room so that this can set on an unfired cap, and there may not be. This one could be an issue. So that's one way to check. Let's try that on gun number 2 here. The cylinder out of the way. Once you get the cylinder out too, it doesn't hurt to check, make sure that bolt down there is lower than the frame. And this one's pretty close, but it is lower, so I'm not going to get drag marks on that. And let's check this one as far as bring it to full cock and then lower it down and see where the click is on this one. Again, I'm looking at the flat part of the hammer compared to the frame, and the click is right there just before I got to before the frame and the hammer lined up. Try that once more. Now right there, I'd almost say maybe a 30-second or less before the flat of the hammer lined up with the frame, back of the frame here. So I think on this gun there'd be quite a bit of room there between the hammer and the percussion cap here, yet when the arm of the bolt drops off that cam. So I doubt this one would really ever have that issue with this gun the way it's set up. On the third gun here, remember we didn't have any problems. We'll just run that Q-tip test one more time on this one. Well, the Q-tip is in there, and no problem, the cylinder rotating. So this one seems to pass the Q-tip test just fine, but I think there's another problem here with this one, if I remember right. I'm going to take the barrel off here and remove the cylinder. And I'm going to try it again with that. Like I did with these two, I'm going to see where the flat of the hammer is compared to the frame. So we'll bring back the full cock and lower that slow. I hear no clicks at all on that. Okay, release the trigger, and bolt is up where we expect it to be. And now when I start drawing the hammer back, because this one has no issues, it should start rotation of the cylinder. The thing is, when I draw the hammer back on this one, that bolt is still in there. I think what we'll try with this one, I've got that in the position right now where it's not moving when I draw the hammer back. What I want to do is take the guard off of this thing, and maybe I can get a camera shot inside this thing, and we'll actually see where the position of the cam and that arm of the bolt that's probably not quite dropped over it. So we'll take that apart and see if we can get a shot of that. Okay, so this is what we suspected. The bolt arm is still on top of the cam and hasn't dropped to where it can release the cylinder when the hammer is brought back. And getting back this bad boy over here, you notice that that bolt definitely sticks up quite a ways up, and when that happens, then the hammer has to go further yet ahead in order to get the arm off the cam. So I'm wondering why that's the case, and also wondering why that bolt didn't want to fit into our cylinder notches here. And I'm getting a suspicion, since I got this gun used, that somebody has changed the bolt in here. It's not the bolt that the manufacturer comes with the gun, and they made some modifications, because there's a little protrusion here on the end of the bolts, and this fellow right here has to come up and hit the bottom side of that frame to stop that bolt from coming up further. And I look at this one really close, I can see that protrusion is too short, and it's actually coming up inside the frame, and that's causing that bolt to come up further than it should. And when that happens, our hammer has to go a lot further ahead in order for the arm to slide over that cam. So I think the issue here is that bolt has been changed at some point, but it doesn't seem to function right now, except when of course the cylinder is out. So I think we'll just leave things alone. So I enjoyed making the video. It actually caused me to fix a potential problem I didn't know I had. Hope it wasn't too confusing and possibly contain some information that's useful. I can't say how much danger there is if you have a gun that has the lockup issue. As I mentioned, I had it and survived. I did soak the gun in a pail of water for 2 weeks, and then had my wife put in the dumpster. Anyway, hopefully others can find a better way, and that you enjoyed watching.